Have you ever heard of someone so desperate to get divorced they started their own religion? It sounds like a joke, but it's the real story of one of history's most notorious kings, Henry VIII of England. When we first meet Henry, he's the total package. Young, handsome, athletic, and intelligent. He's the Renaissance prince everyone dreams of, ruling over a prosperous and optimistic England. He marries Catherine of Aragon, his brother's widow, and for a while, everything seems perfect. They're deeply in love, and the future of the Tudor dynasty looks secure. But there's a shadow looming over this fairy tale. Catherine can't produce a male heir. She gives Henry a daughter, Mary, but in the brutal world of 16th century politics, a female ruler was seen as a weakness, a recipe for civil war. And Henry, haunted by the memory of the bloody wars of the Roses that brought his father to the throne, becomes obsessed. He needs a son, no matter the cost. This obsession is the spark that ignites a firestorm. As years pass, and Catherine enters her 40s, Henry's gaze begins to wander. It lands on a captivating young woman at court in Boleyn. And as everything, Catherine is not fiery, ambitious, and promising the one thing Henry desires most, a son. Unlike her sister, who had been Henry's mistress, and refuses to be just a royal plaything. She wants to be queen, or nothing at all. This puts Henry in an impossible position. He's a devout Catholic, but the Pope, under the thumb of Catherine's powerful nephew, the Holy Roman Emperor, refuses to grant him an annulment. For 7 long years, Henry pleads, negotiates, and threatens, but Rome won't budge. Trapped between his desire for an and his duty to the Catholic Church, Henry makes a decision that will shatter the world as he knows it. He decides that if the Pope won't give him what he wants, he'll just get rid of the Pope. Advised by radical thinkers like Thomas Cromwell and Thomas Cranmer, Henry takes a monumental step. He breaks with Rome, declares himself the supreme head of the Church of England, and grants his own annulment. It's a seismic event. He marries a pregnant Anne Boleyn in secret, finally believing his dream of a son is within reach. But fate has a cruel sense of humor, and gives him a daughter, Elizabeth. Henry's joy quickly turns to disappointment and then to suspicion. Anne's fiery personality, which had once entranced him, now seems like a liability. She's outspoken, politically meddlesome, and has powerful enemies at court. When she fails to produce a son after a couple of miscarriages, her fate is sealed. Desperate to move on, Henry and his advisors, led by Cromwell, fabricate shocking charges against her: adultery, incest, and treason. In a terrifying display of royal power, Anne Boleyn, the woman who changed the course of English history, is arrested, tried in a sham court, and executed on Tower Green. Her crime wasn't treason, it was her failure to give Henry a son. Just days after Anne's execution, Henry marries wife number 3, the gentle and quiet Jane Seymour. She is the complete opposite of Anne, and she succeeds where all others have failed. She gives Henry his long-awaited son, Edward. But this triumph is short-lived. Jane dies from complications of childbirth just 12 days later, leaving Henry heartbroken. He considered her his only true wife, and he would later be buried beside her. With his heir secured, you'd think Henry might settle down. But the political machine he created keeps turning. His chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, arranges a political match with a German princess, Anne of Cleves, to secure a Protestant alliance. But the marriage is a disaster from the moment they meet. Henry, now middle-aged, overweight, and suffering from a painful leg wound, is repulsed by her. He famously calls her the Flanders mare and has the marriage annulled after just 6 months. This catastrophic mismatch costs Cromwell his head. Henry, in a fit of rage, blames him for the fiasco and has his most loyal servant executed for treason. Now free again, the aging king falls for a vivacious teenager, Catherine Howard, who was Anne Boleyn's cousin. She brings a fleeting sense of youth and joy back to the paranoid court, but she is hopelessly naive. Accustomed to the flirtations of her youth, she continues a relationship with a man from her past and starts another with one of Henry's favorite courtiers, when her indiscretions are revealed. Henry's fury is absolute, betrayed and humiliated. He sends another queen to the executioner's block, Catherine Howard, barely out of her teens. Meets the same fate as her cousin. Henry's final wife is Catherine Parr, a mature and kind widow who acts more as a nurse than a romantic partner to the increasingly obese and ill king. She is a stabilizing influence, carefully navigating the treacherous court politics and even helping to reconcile Henry with his two daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, having them restored to the line of succession. She outlives him, but only just. In 1547, Henry VIII dies. He's a grotesque figure by this point, morbidly obese, racked with pain from his festering leg ulcer, and consumed by paranoia. He leaves behind a kingdom that has been torn from its religious foundations and a legacy that is as complex as the man himself. He achieved his primary goal. His son, Edward VI, inherits the throne. But Edward is a sickly boy and dies young. His death triggers a succession crisis, with his fiercely Catholic half-sister Mary taking the throne, briefly plunging England back into the Catholic fold and earning the nickname Bloody Mary for her persecution of Protestants. But it's Henry's other daughter, the one he never wanted, who will ultimately define his legacy. After Mary's death, Elizabeth I, the daughter of the disgraced Anne Boleyn, becomes queen. She rules for over 40 years, ushering in a golden age of exploration, culture, and national pride. She proves that a woman could rule as effectively, if not more so, than any king. She solidifies the Protestant Church of England that her father created out of selfish desire, and turns it into a cornerstone of English identity. So, what do we make of Henry VIII? Was he a monster who killed his wives on a whim, or a misunderstood king forced to make brutal choices to secure his dynasty? The truth is, he was both. He was a man driven by a potent mix of personal desire, political necessity, and a profound sense of his own divine right to rule. His quest for a son was not just about ego, it was about preventing a devastating civil war. But his methods were tyrannical and cruel. He created a new church not out of theological conviction, but because he wanted a new wife. His story is a powerful reminder that in the high-stakes game of thrones, love, faith, and even life itself can become just another tool for power. What began as one man's obsession with a male heir ended up redefining a nation forever. Thanks so much for watching this deep dive into one of history's most fascinating and fearsome rulers. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories that show how the past shaped our present. Let me know in the comments which historical figure you'd like to see covered next. See you in the next video.